Psychotechnologies Live. Welcome to a very special episode of Psychotechnologies Live. This title for the episode is Meditate Your Childhood Trauma Away, CPTSD, which is complex PTSD. So, Elliot, you have clickbait me hard. You're saying that I can meditate my childhood trauma away. I demand answers. I demand you walk me through it. I need you to tell me what is trauma, what is meditation, and how or why should do those things go together. And don't let me down, or you're just going to increase my trauma. And then I'm going to have to dump this all on my therapist.
More abandonment issues where the adults didn't tell you how to do things.
Yeah, you're going to just set me up for failure.
Okay, which one do you want to start on? Meditation, trauma?
I want to know what trauma is, because I feel like we got to have the problem, then we got to have the solution, and then we got to have, I don't know, whatever comes next.
So what's the question? What do we mean by trauma?
What is trauma? So I know what like physical trauma is like someone takes, like a hammer and smashes your leg, like that creates trauma to the body, breaks blood vessels, bones, etc. But what is, I assume you don't mean that. I assume you mean like psychological or emotional trauma. Right.
And I really like the using for an example of trauma, the car accident, right? Because let's say you weren't driving, you did, like the other driver, you as, or the person driving, like they're not part of the trauma here. It's not like someone maliciously, because like there's the trauma that comes in relationally, but we're going for like the car accident, which is we're talking physical trauma. You were in a car accident, you got injured, and now you're in this place where you're recovering from, and like physically recovering, and then also emotionally, mentally, occasionally you might get flashbacks of like being trapped in the car or being in a lot of pain, and it kind of like right?
Right. So like something happens to you like in your childhood, or you grew up in an environment where there's like a lot of little things going on, or maybe there's like a couple big things that happen. And so you get this like trauma, like the incident happens and you're distraught and emotionally distressed and all that stuff. And then as you go through life, I think what you're saying is like you're having to like process that stuff.
Right.
And so
this experience, and I think it's a pretty common one, of like intrusive memories. Like I'm walking down the street and I'm like, oh, this is just like the time that I walked down the street when I was 5 and I tripped over, and then my siblings laughed at me, and now I feel even walking.
And so you're back in your childhood. You're back in your
like
bullied.
Right.
Yeah. You're not present in the being tripped and fallen, just dealing with whatever's happening now. You're dealing with the past.
Trip and fall right now. That was like way long ago. So one way to think of trauma as intrusive.
Okay, so it's like the intrusiveness that shows up in your life post the traumatic incident.
Right. And then so this example of like falling over, tripping and scraping my knee, like trauma is kind of on a spectrum. We've got the little ones like that, which really don't feel of all that much consequence, compared to the big capital T trauma, like someone was murdered in front of me and I'm like trauma. It's easy to say I'm traumatized by that, but even the little traumas have the same psychological phenomena of like haunting as being intrusive thoughts. And it's even the like people know with the big traumas, oh, I was in the car accident, now I'm going to need to get therapy about it. But for these little haunting childhood ones, people don't realize that those ones can also be worked on, and they're super important. And it's often like when someone goes on a trauma journey, they start with the big stuff because that's the like, or maybe they start with some solvable ones, like why can't I ever focus productively on my work? And then like they find the like, oh, in high school people told me I was stupid and then I believed it and now I'm permanently stuck like that. And then they process those, and then they go for the really big ones, and then they're like, I got most of my like big capital T trauma, and now what I have left is these little ones that like they're not as consequential as the really really strong big capital T traumas, but they can be more pervasive, but in a little way. Like, for example, if every time I ate food, I worried about choking on it, right? It's like, it's little, but it happens it happens every day, potentially. Or like, I'll give you one that I actually have at the moment that I've been watching for a while. When I eat food, I eat too quickly. Like, what's going on there? What part of me learned, probably in my childhood, that when I eat, I just have to eat quickly. Like some part of me is like, hurry up, we have to make sure we eat it or there won't be any left. I grew up with siblings.
It's like a post-prison people, like people that have been in prison, they're like
Right.
kind of protective around that stuff.
So even without going into like my own version of where did this come from, my dad grew up with two brothers. They were competitively eating stuff. My grandmother on my other side survived the Holocaust. You know, she didn't have food and she like came out of that encouraging us to eat lots of food. Like this is my foundational setup on which I'm going to be an adult.
Right. So like as a kid, when you're like born and you've never eaten before because you've just had, you know, the you know, you've just been eating through your belly button.
Mhm.
Now all of a sudden, you know, you're trying to learn what's going on and you're copying those around you. And then I imagine, and like not to put blame on the previous generations, but I imagine that they probably like had some triggers or some reactions or engaged with you in ways that made you like feel stressed or felt like you had to do things certain ways. And so now these habits still stay with you even through into adulthood. And there's these like underlying patterns that exist within you.
Right.
So like, how do you deal with this? Do you just like ignore it, or is there something and hope it goes away, or do you just shame yourself into like, oh, just like I'll just beat myself every time I eat, and then maybe that will solve my problems?
I mean, as it stands, I eat food quickly. I gulp. I have to drink water because I take a bite so big that I almost choke on it. Like,
oh wow,
like, I'm an adult here. Why am I still doing it? And yet, like, I am. I do this more than once a week. I find myself having to drink water when I eat because I'm rushing through my food. Like, okay,
and like not because you like to drink while you eat, but because it's like to help it go down, or to like,
actually help it go down because it's kind of stuck. Like
that does sound pretty.
How stupid I am. I've been living with this all my life.
That's pretty nuts. So like, what are you gonna do about it? Are you just gonna like give up and be like, this is just how I live, and like pass that on to your kids?
So like we started like partway into the process, right? So step 0 of like I'm unaware. I didn't even know I was rushing through my food, right?
Okay.
Step 2, I noticed the like near choking sensation. I noticed the gulping when I got down water. I'm like, oh, now I'm aware of the process. Step 3, we're gonna go for, or at least I'm aware of the symptoms, right? Then we're gonna go for internal process aware, unaware, aware.
So you got a whole like
trigger aware,
system for dealing with this.
Yeah, well, actually
going through your trauma
through Kimbata's evolution of shadow progression system for working through it, but also we're going to throw in some meditation, right? Because that was the premise. Like, so here I am. I just realized like I'm gulping down my food. I've gone from unaware to aware, and I'm like, what? I'm still like, what the heck is going on, right? This is where we're going to bring in some meditation. So my job from here on as I eat is to be more mindful, particularly like, so we're going from unaware to aware to symptom aware to trigger aware. So I want to know at this point, like I've just noticed, like I've just, recently it's become the thing that I want to work on, this, like, why am I eating so fast? Right. But I want to know, when do I start eating fast? Like, what is the trigger for, like, is it when I start cooking the food that I'm rushing? Is it when I like the plates in front of me that I'm like, quick, take a bite? Is it like,
so like, when does that anxiety start to set on? Like, what is the beginning of this food cycle, right? So if you're outside, walking around, then you're not there. You go home, it's not there. And then sometime after you get home, but before, you put the food in your mouth, you've gotten activated, you've entered this like new mindset, or something has gone haywire. And so
I wonder how many people have this particular one. I walk in the door at home and I'm like, oh, time to go get food, right? Like, there's a trigger there. I walk in the door, I'm fine. I'm like, I've been out doing things for a couple of hours and I'm about to get home, and I get home and I time to eat things, like, immediately.
Is this like triggered from hunger? Or you've been out all day doing a lot of hard work and you didn't bring lunch, and now you get home and you're like,
I wasn't hungry.
I
wasn't hungry 5 minutes before I walked in my door. I wasn't hungry 2 minutes before I walked in my door. Somehow, like, suddenly I'm home, and then like, oh, now I'm hungry. So this is like me trying to start with reflecting on, like, oh, where's my trigger? Like, what is the trigger that makes me go, I'm hungry?
That's cool. Like, how would one even begin to sort of look for the trigger? Like, how did you Like walk me through the process you used to like kind of nail it down.
Right. So the hunch is like our current model of trauma is this intrusive thought model. Like throughout my day, these things kind of like pop in, right? So we're looking for like, when do they pop in? And one way is to like think back, like when did they last pop in? And another way is to like start with mindfulness, like, okay, now we're going to pay lots of attention when they next pop in. And we're probably going to miss it the next time, right? But like a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, I'll be like, oh, I'm gulping down my food again. When did I start this, right? When did it pop in? And then I can trace back. And I might not be able to, but with a little bit of practice, I will get to the trigger. That's a process.
I guess you're trying to notice it as quickly as possible. And then instead of like feeling shit or like, you know, beating yourself up about it or doing something in the moment, it's sort of just like calmly remembering back to when this started.
Right. So that's like as a mindfulness meditation.
So that's interesting. So it's like a more mindfulness, like sort of like that. The first step is like a mindfulness or awareness of like, okay, how did we get here? What's the last thing I remember, I guess.
Right. So at this conversation, I'm like, from now on, I'm paying attention. I'm going to notice when I gulp down my food and try and find like, when did I start rushing through my food? Like, is it when it's on my plate? Is it when I'm cooking it? Is it like, you know, I'm like, I go to pick up a piece of food and I pick up a piece that's too big. Like, what's the thing that is like, got to eat all of this? And so I don't know, but this is now I'm setting myself up here. Like, if you think of like meditation as like an intention, I'm intending to pay attention for that thing that's like, we're going to sort out the food. And then for this particular trauma, we're going to have to wait until the next time it triggers, right? And then or a couple more times that it'll trigger for me to get to know it better. And then,
but that's cool. Like you know approximately when it is. Like it's around when you get home.
Right. Well, one example is when I get home through the door. Another example is when I hang up a phone call. I'm like, I did great. Time to go eat. You know?
Okay.
Which is good. Okay. I feel like 7 phone calls a day, and then I'm like, oh no, why am I eating so much today?
Okay, I like this. So now like we're starting to bring some real stakes in because you're on like a Zoom call right now with me, live streaming.
That's a great idea.
And then at some point we're gonna close, and we're all going back to our own lives, and that's when the trigger is gonna be for you.
Right. So I feel like it's an important.
I'm feeling this like anticipation hanging over our heads, like this Elliot trigger, you know, that's gonna happen at the end of the episode.
I feel like there's an important thing here of like, I'm okay to play in this way because this is fun, right? And there's some way in which we're making this fun. I'm like, when's it going to happen? When's it going to trigger? But if this was like maybe a more traumatic trigger, like, you know, if I go back to the car accident example, like for that to, like, when's it going to trigger? It might be like, when am I going to be like crawling on the ground, overwhelmed, right? I'm a lot more uncomfortable with the trigger.
Right. And I think you're right. You're right to point this out. I think it's important that our audiences know that like this is the way we play, like this is the way us as psychotechnologists play, and there's a certain sensitivity we have with each other. And
well, like if it were a more serious trauma, I wouldn't be encouraging to play in the same way. I'd be like, okay, by that point, there's probably like triggers around the triggers. Like often people talk about anxiety as being a spiral. It's not just that I'm anxious, it's that I'm like anxious about being anxious, and then it gets worse and worse and worse. Like, oh no, what if I get anxious? Oh no, I'm getting anxious now. Oh no, this is it, right? Like, and it's a spiral.
Oh,
right?
Dude, that can go so high, yeah.
Right, but it's the spiral is more of a problem than just like, wow, I feel anxious right now. There's a way if I can just be with the thing without the spiral, then I can move through it and get to a better place much easier. So like responsibility and care is needed around this step of like finding the trigger. And actually for some people they might already know the trigger, right? Like to use another classic example, when people talk about politics, I'm triggered. I get angry, I get frustrated, I start ranting.
Like this culture war stuff
too, right? And there's a choice here. I can just stop. I can avoid the triggers. Anytime I hear someone talk about politics, I can be like, I'm out, bye.
Right. I think there's, yeah, like I think you're right. Like we do start to create these triggers for ourselves where it's like, oh, I know this is gonna end well, so I'm gonna like go before. Like it's kind of what we're doing now, right? Where you're like, this thing is bad, so I'm gonna like set up a trigger before that thing happens to get out of it, and then
Right.
you keep going before. And I think sometimes those triggers are set up nicely that like it kind of like just alerts you. It's like signs. You're like, oh, slippery slope ahead, and you're like, okay, like that's cool. I'll just be a little bit more on my guard. Or like, okay, I don't feel like doing that today. I'm gonna, I drank too much. I'm gonna go somewhere else now. But I think sometimes the triggers themselves can be either damaging or like not helpful, or like send you in weird directions, like panicky almost.
So I think there's an evaluative step here. Like if the trigger is too much, like way too much, then we need enough space. We need to turn down the triggers in order for us to have enough space to feel okay to even work on them. And that's another meditative step comes in. Like, and this is, I'm going to be like meditation on doing nothing.
Like that sounds like a lot.
Seems like
okay.
a lot.
What's doing nothing?
Right. So there's this idea from therapy. Let me give you the contextual model. There's this idea that we need to like go away from the bad things, have a platform of safety, security, sanity, peacefulness, like feel good. And then when we feel good,
space.
Once we feel like we've got enough space, enough good, enough whatever we need, we feel up-resourced. With that up-resource, we can then turn around and look at our triggers, look at our pain, and be like, I have the capacity to be compassionate to myself. I have the resource to look at it without feeling like this absolutely sucks and I'm torturing myself, because I have the difference. So we have these meditations that'll take us to a nice place, take us to a do nothing place, take us to peacefulness. There's this one that I really love that I occasionally I work with people and they're like, I am working really hard and nothing's working. And I'm oh yeah, this sounds like I'm trying really hard and I'm exhausted and nothing's working. And right. So I call it the I quit meditation.
Yeah. Okay. I quit meditation. I like this. Life is too hard. I quit. I'm out. I'll see you guys next reincarnation.
In which we're like, okay, here's the deal. For the next 2 minutes, anything that comes to mind, all you need to be like, nah, not doing that. I quit. Screw that. And if we're talking productivity, like the next email is popping in, like, oh, you should really just be like, I quit. I drop it. Like, I'm not gonna fuck that. No way. Like anything. But what about that other? Like, nope, I'm not even gonna do. But what about? Like, nope, I'm gonna drop that too.
Okay, that sounds really really intense. There's a bunch of people I think I know that I would like for them to learn how to do that. But it's like you're saying, like just 2 minutes essentially is you're just saying no to everything. You're just dropping everything. You're just not doing anything.
Right, and there's a way in which like people are even like, no, I won't even do 2 minutes of that. Like,
yeah.
And I'm because hey, look, just try it for 2 minutes. After 2 minutes, we'll do other things, whatever. We'll work on the productivity. But just 2 minutes of like, yep, quit that.
Yeah, like it's so interesting that thing that you're saying, because it's like in the moment, it's like, oh my god, 2 minutes. Like I waste 2 minutes of my life. Like no way, I would never do that. And like in the long term of things, you're like, dude, like it would be worth to spend like 40 hours doing nothing if you could like even just get a little bit of space there.
Yeah. Absolutely. But like 2 minutes of like, nope, not going to do that, not going to do that, not going to do that. It's like, imagine that we're juggling and like, you've got like a bunch of juggling balls up in the air and you're like, why can't I juggle all these juggling balls? And I'm like, just let them fall. Like, yeah, we'll drop them all. They're all going to hit the ground. And then it's like, there's a relief. They all hit the ground. There's this like, oh, I don't need to juggle them. They're all going to hit the ground. And then once they've hit the ground, like really there's this like giving up, letting go, like letting them hit the ground, like nope, nothing. Then I can go, okay, I feel better. I'm not juggling them. Which ones am I going to pick up? And in what road do I pick them up? Because I will ultimately, there's a reason why I was juggling them in the first place. It's because I was trying to do all this stuff. But from this, like I could let go and then the right things come up is a much healthier frame for working with things than like I have to hold. Why can't I hold all these lines, right? But like, how do I hold it all? Like, I don't need to hold it all because it's all going to still be there.
Yeah, Yeah, I do. I know what you're talking about. There's like a million things going on,
Right.
not a million. It's not actually a million. It feels like there's all these things going on that you have to do all this stuff, and like you've hit your past capacity, like you can't do it.
Right.
And so even just like take that moment and like let the universe just fall apart for 2 minutes,
Which is
and
amazing.
then
It's
yeah, and then
almost
like
I think that I'm holding the universe together by like holding really
yeah,
like all the ropes.
like
And then,
no, Adam's got to move, and people got to do stuff.
right, if I let go of all of the ropes that I pretend I'm holding, they're all still there. It's just I'm not holding them. And then I can be like, oh, I only needed to like pull this one a little bit and pull that string a little bit. Like
Yeah,
it's way more empowering and freeing. Like
yeah.
in terms of meditatively, we talk about right action.
Ooh.
Like you can't see the right action if you're too busy holding all the things and juggling and like
Right.
you know,
And if your attention is scattered and moving
right,
around.
you got no chance.
Yeah. It's like interesting because like I feel like I do feel what you're saying. Like I have done it where I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna let the universe just
Right.
destroy itself. Like just fuck it. Like the world can just do whatever, like just let the world destroy itself. And like spoiler alert, 2 minutes later, the world's still here.
Yeah. Right.
You know, like like things move even if you're not around.
Right. So
Like don't do this driving, obviously, but
yeah, definitely like look, there's some like pull over the car and then like do nothing for a bit.
right. Like get yourself to the safe space where you can do nothing for 2 minutes and then just do nothing for 2 minutes. And it's interesting because like you're actually doing quite a lot. Like there's a lot of stuff going on in your head and like floating through and like coming up, and like to actually sit and just like sit and do nothing for 2 minutes is, in those cases, it's like it's easier to just like panic and flail around.
Mm. Right. I'm not gonna panic. I'm not gonna not panic. Like I'm not gonna do like there's this way in which doing stuff, right? I'm panicking and I'm like, don't panic. And now I'm doing the like telling myself not to panic thing, and I'm still
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
just
now yelling at myself, don't panic, or like clench something so that I'm not.
like, oh, I'm also gonna not do the don't panic thing. Like, okay.
Yeah.
And then it'll like sneak back in, like panic, don't panic, and like drop that as well. Like
Yeah.
takes a couple of iterations and a little bit of
Dude, that's intense. I thought you were gonna give us something easy to deal with our complex PTSD. Now you're like making me do all this like hard work of doing nothing. And then I don't even get like boast about it after, right? Like at least I go to therapy, like, oh, I did this thing and it was so hard. But like to sit and do nothing for 2 minutes, like it's super hard.
right.
And I'm probably, I don't like, I mean, I practice this stuff and I still don't do it 100% well.
Mhm.
And like, what am I going to boast? Like, I'm going to come home to my wife and be like, guess what I did? I did nothing for 2 minutes. Which, by the way, I have boasted to her, and like, I don't know, it doesn't seem to land. Like, she's not like, I'm so proud of you, Daniel. Good job. You're supposed to be watching the kid, and you did nothing for 2 minutes.
Oh my god. Right. So we've got this. So that'll hopefully the doing nothing and maybe some other meditations and like feeling good for a moment, like maybe just simplifying from the nothing place, just paying attention to very little, like the breathing sensations, kind of enjoying the peacefulness of breathing for a moment. It's gonna up
breathing. Okay, now we're up in the stakes here. So you got to do nothing for 2 minutes, and you got to breathe the whole time.
Right. Well, you probably don't because the breathing happens even if you don't do it.
Okay.
Right. Don't not breathe and don't breathe. There's like another skill there. Right. Just
Okay.
breathing happens.
It's like a Zen koan, I think, like a riddle. How do you sit and breathe and not breathe at the same time?
Right.
And
Well,
yeah, I think like for me that like when I do that, it's the awareness of choice and the awareness of like what energies am I adding to my body, or what am I trying to force versus like my lungs know how to breathe. Like I don't really need that much like I don't need a lot of I don't actually need like a lot of like intentionality behind the breathing, but I almost need the intentionality behind not being intentional about the breathing.
right. So we get a bit of doing nothing, we get a bit of breathing, we feel a bit more peaceful, and now we can turn back and look at one of the triggers. Right. So there's less triggers, and we're like, okay, we're gonna like look at one and tackle one. So now I want to becoming more aware of the trigger. I'm like, oh, it's when people talk about politics. And we want to move from trigger aware to internal process aware. So there's this question of like, what am I doing internally, like inside my body, inside my psyche? That's like, these people are dumb. They don't know anything. They're trying to destroy the world, right? If I'm telling those stories internally, that's my internal process. I am causing my own frustration with this trigger. Partly. So this is a like introspective step. We go from trigger aware to like internal process aware. Like, what's going on with that? What's going on with the trigger? Do you have another?
Right. So there's like the trigger. So like, oh, they said this word. Like there are actually a bunch of trigger words that like I know and I know not to say, but I'm not going to say
for yourself or for other people.
Like there's like sort of common ones for everyone. And like I'm not gonna say them here because like I've just trained myself not to say
like,
them.
People that care about politics, maybe like education is a real trigger word. Or like private.
Right.
You start
well, don't say all the words. Like we're not trying to like berate our audience. I'm sure enough stuff is coming up for them
in this world, and everyone's like, what the fuck, he's about to say the wrong thing.
No, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that like already us talking about like being triggered and like all these emotional reactions, like I'll bet you the people listening are already like things are already coming up for them. And I don't need to like say words that are, gonna
right, but we've got to pick something to do the work through. So
let's pick your food stuff. So that way it's like,
well, I don't know what the trigger is for that one. So that one's a bit, I need to find the trigger first.
What about coming home or finishing phone calls? You want to walk through that? What happens after you've done the call? Sounds like you're rewarding yourself.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I know it well enough. I can try. Let's try.
Okay.
So
better your triggers than mine.
I see what you're doing. Some like masterful deflection stuff. Yeah. Okay, I don't know. Let's see where this goes. So I mean, here's a little puzzle. I know this process. I've done this process on a bunch of other triggers. So like there's some sort of block here where if I, knowing that I already knew the process, I could have already applied it to here and I haven't. So at some point we're going to find a block. Let's find out where the block.
Let's do this. Let's block hunt.
Right.
It's block hunt season.
Right. So
season.
I finished the call. I finished a call and I am like, oh, I'm going to go eat something. So one of my internal processes is like, when is my next phone call? Oh, I've only got an hour and then I have another hour of phone call, right? So my internal process is doing this like, I'm about to go for, potentially intense or potentially like powerful emotional work. 1 hour from now, I need to like up resource myself with food, obviously with food, with sugar, with like I ate a bunch of fruit.
Yeah. Yo, that glucose, man. Right. It hits your brain real nice. It makes thinking so much easier.
Right. So I'm doing this internal conversation where I'm like, oh, I need food so that I can prep for the next step, which is interesting because this sounds like some of those meditations that are like, I'm going to meditate up resource so that I can handle the next thing. I'm doing the same thing, but I'm doing it with food.
You're doing like in the physical world with like food, which is maybe not necessarily something you even need.
Well, it's funny because I both, I feel it. I feel like, oh, sugar will help me here. And also I feel like, and I have sat in calls with people for 8 hours in a row and like been like, I'm good. I can handle this. This is great.
Right. Yeah.
So I've got this like mismatch here because part of me knows we can handle it. And part of me is like, no, we got to go eat the sugar.
I'm wondering how that habit develops. Like that's what's coming up for me. Because I know when I first started doing like more intense adult stuff, I would like part of my process was to like get everything I could possibly need during that phone, like that first meeting. It's like a job interview is like putting in so much work into just being able to show up and like handle whatever's happening just to give like that first impression. Right. And that's fine for job interviews because they don't happen that often, but to like do that multiple times a day every day is like unsustainable.
Or like gotta eat a chocolate bar every conversation or something. Like what?
Right.
That's not healthy.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm impressed because you just like hit the nail on the head for the next step in the process. Or from internal process aware to conscious conceptualization. which is the question of like, when did it first happen? Like,
Right.
when did I first develop this habit of like, I need the sugar to be able to cope with the emotions?
Mm-hmm.
That's congratulations, you found the next step.
Thank you. I am a brilliant
You are
psychotechnologist.
brilliant. You are brilliant, which is kind of funny.
Nice.
So I mean, I guess I got to ask myself this question now. Like, when did I first? So specifically, we're talking about food stuff. We're talking about. I'm just going to walk through in my head to try and orient. So talking about food stuff, talking about in between phone calls when I'm like, oh, I'm looking for. I look ahead in my calendar. I'm like, the next one's in an hour. I'm going to have to go eat something before this next call. When did I first start doing that? What was my first experience? Yeah, I'm getting like wisps of memories of like primary school and like food lunchtime. You know, you're like, this is lunchtime. I have to eat something before the next classes or like recess. There's a bit of that. I wonder if it goes earlier. Yeah. I have this is an interesting one. So I have this one memory of probably being 3, 4, 5 and having dinner with my family and like needing to go to the bathroom or something. And my family had a lot of like, when you eat dinner, you stay at the dinner table. Mm-hmm. And then I left or something, like I left to go to the bathroom. And then I came back and the food was gone. Mm-hmm. And like, if you want to traumatize a kid, feel free to do something like that. Like, teach them that food won't always be there. Like, I mean, my guess would be it was around the time when I was already like uncertain about the object permanence. Like, will objects still be there when I go back to the room or not? Like, sometimes yes, sometimes no, apparently. Mm-hmm. So it probably just landed badly for me. Like, I don't blame my family, and it was an accident. But here I was very early on going like, what if there isn't food next time I'm hungry? Mm-hmm. And this is my kind of internal process. I'm going like, oh, better eat now, or because there may not be another chance for a while.
So it's like food insecurity.
Yeah.
That's a deep one.
Right. So this this is like, maybe this is a chance to move back towards the meditation, which is maybe meditation on suffering, which is yet another type of meditation. There's this way in which we think about suffering, and we think that suffering is going to be terrible. And this applies to like all suffering. Like, what if I turn up at the party and no one likes me? It'll be terrible. And like, what if I go to eat the food and like, what if I go to the meeting and I'm hungry and I'm just going to be hungry for the next hour? And like, the suffering will be terrible. And like, what if
it's like this anticipatory suffering versus suffering per se?
Right. And there's this way in which, well, that's the shape of the thing, right? It's I anticipate the meeting coming up and I'm like, what if I'm hungry the whole meeting? Mm-hmm. And actually, I could probably solve some of that by having food nearby. And also like, I'm doing—
Is that the next step, is to solve it? Or is there an intermediate step in between?
I'm going for like meditate on the suffering first. Like, okay, like how bad would it be if I was in the meeting with Daniel right now and I was hungry and I couldn't go get food?
How bad would it be? How bad would it be right now if you were hungry and we have another like hour to go, and like what would happen? Like, what's going on? Like right now, I want you to picture yourself being hungry and no access to food right now.
Right.
Like, what would happen? Like, how would you react? Like, what would go happen? What bad things would be
There's a little bit of like feeling bad. There's a little bit of feeling distracted. There's a bit of like, oh, maybe there's some food somewhere here. Maybe it like, maybe.
Right. Okay. You're not paying attention to me now. Like, I'm trying to do this thing with you and you're just like off looking around doing stuff. Like, I am offended and.
Right. And this is the bad thing, right? So this is the like hanging out with the bad thing.
Yeah. You're distracted. Okay.
Right. And like, how bad would it actually? Well, it's kind of like it's annoying, but it's not that bad.
Is it?
Yeah, like a little annoying or a little bad, but it's like, okay, I can.
Okay.
I just keep going in that.
Do you
Cool.
think you'll make it? You'll survive, or do you think it's gonna rebound your trauma?
I'm
No, I know you're gonna physically survive. I didn't mean that. I meant like I was being a little tongue in cheek, but I mean like is this gonna make your trauma worse? Because like if you have a thing, like if you have a fear and then that fear comes true and it's like worse than you thought, then that just reinforces like, oh, actually that was really bad and I shouldn't have, like I'm gonna create like an extra trigger around like testing this because like I did test it and it turned out badly. So
right.
do you think like if you were like hungry, low blood sugar or whatever, now like you're saying it's not that bad?
Yeah, and so often, and this happens with a lot of types of suffering. When we examine the suffering, we're like, oh, that's all. Like here I am. We spent 5-10 minutes talking about what if I'm hungry, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a little hungry. This is fine.
Okay.
Like, it turns out the anticipation, like in actual fact, look, it's not great to be hungry, but also I'm okay. Like this is fine. Like
You strike me as pretty resilient. Do you
right.
want to take like 2 minutes and just do nothing with your hunger and see how that goes?
Right. There's a way in which if I do that, it'll probably also go away. Right. Oh, okay. I could just not do anything. I don't have to respond to it. I could just not do anything and it'll like clear up a bit.
Yeah. I do feel like also for hunger for like I know I'm overweight and so like I know for me hunger is like the vast majority of the time it's just psychological, right? Like I could literally not eat for like a month and I would be fine. Like physically I would be fine, but
I mean, do you want to look at it? What's the
it would be uncomfortable.
like, if you're gonna lose weight, which you are, you're gonna have.
No, we're not putting this on me. I was just being here to like so that you would have another person that had feelings with you and you wouldn't feel alone in your suffering.
Right.
We're not turning this around on me. Like this is deflection here. That's not one of the steps.
What's the hunger thing? Why is hunger so bad?
It's super. I don't know. I was like learning a lot from you. I'm like, oh, I think I got some similarities here. And so I was like, vicariously, I was doing my meditations vicariously.
Yeah.
I was suffering vicariously.
As a coach type, I totally get it.
Takes the edge off. What?
As a coach type, I'm like, I'm just gonna watch other people. I'm gonna help other people like hold their hand through their stuff, and then I can learn from the way that they're coping and the way that they're resilient, rather than having to go through.
Instead of having to go through it myself, I got to just collect the data from others.
Right.
It's easier to learn from other people's mistakes than your own.
Yeah, mistake stuff, right? But yeah, like what's so bad about hunger? Your own hunger.
It's not that. It's not really like the hunger. It's like I use it to regulate myself, which is like not good. It's not a good way to live life.
Feel better, feel happy.
Yeah, like I get stressed throughout the day. Like there's a lot of like I do a lot of stuff. I do like different things. And like I'm very like I'm entrepreneur, so it's like everything has to be like self-motivated. Because like there's not really, it's rare that like when people bug me, but not bug me, but like when people respond and stuff, it actually feels better because there's a lot of flow. But most of the time I'm like having to do it myself and I don't know what I'm going to do until like I said, like to actually execute this stuff is usually pretty quick. It's just like all that stuff before is really hard. And so like I use it just to like sort of create things to go on, and to like because like action creates action. So if I'm gonna go kitchen.
You're like, if you're feeling lazy, you're like, I'm gonna go to the kitchen, get some food, and then I'm gonna do blah blah blah.
I don't really use the L word, but like if like my action potential is like not moving, like if I'm not getting activated, then one of the techniques that I like to use is I'll find something small to do. So like it's easier to do something small than it is to do something big, and then once you're doing something small, it's much easier to do something big. Right. And so like even picking like a little small task, and like food is one of those things where like I don't know, it's starting to like default to food for a lot of times because I have to do it multiple times a day, every day. And it's just like an easy one to do. Also, like my food setup is so nice, right? Like I got all the stuff going on. It's very easy. It's very easy to like very quickly make something like that I'm proud of.
Ah, like a delicious sandwich stack.
Yeah, like whatever. Like I got my whole setup going on. So like everything is super easy. And like there's like multiple dishes I can make, and like I have it where I'm not, like I don't eat, I won't eat the same thing more than like twice a week usually.
Mhm.
Unless I forget to go shopping. But it's so like, yeah, like I do stuff that's easy and it makes me feel good about myself.
Mm.
But I don't know. It's like, but like
That's
it's not good for me.
where are we? Trigger aware, internal process aware.
And it also like it buys me that alone time because I'm like, oh, I need to eat and I shouldn't work while I eat. So like I get like a period of time where I'm like, no, there's no pressure.
Right. So we want
These are
to.
bad things, guys. You shouldn't do this. Don't don't do this.
So here we are. We're at internal process aware, and we want to move to conscious conceptualization. So like, when did you first do this thing? This like reward.
So yeah, this started a while ago. So it started with the depression. So I used to be really depressed, and then when I was coming out of it, so like I just wouldn't eat when I was depressed. And it was like a thing to eat every single day. It was like a thing I had to like remember and like
Ah,
almost like coerce myself into doing. And like I remember time, I'm like, I'm proud of myself. I'm eating, I ate every single day, like for like a month. And then my wife told me, she's like, you're supposed to eat multiple times a day, right?
whoa.
I'm like, oh yeah. But then I got good at like adding multiple times in the day, but then it just never stopped. So it just kept adding.
Right. Okay. Like, I want to be like, congratulations, Daniel, for solving the
Thank you.
problem, the depression problem, and the eating multiple times a day. And here you are, finally.
I overshot it. I do this a lot. I overshoot things.
Notice the overshooting. Right.
Yeah, I get good systems down, and then I'm like, oh, this is easy, and then it's just like the momentum builds.
Right.
So I need to like set. So I started setting like further targets,
Mm.
like things I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna be able to overshoot this, like for at least a decade. Like, just like put it out super far.
Cool. Okay. So, how do you want to like? This is internal process to conscious concept. So now that you can see what you've been doing, you have this opportunity to rewrite your conscious concept. Like, are you going to change? There you go. He's doing it already.
Yeah, you tricked me into this.
I mean,
You know what? I think it's fair. I was giving you so much shit now. Like you keynote that.
I mean, this is what I was talking about like there was a bottleneck, right? So you kind of like you probably knew you were eating food, but you hadn't realized that you had overshot your system. And now you've realized, and now there's like we're naturally forming the change. We're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
What's going on? What have you decided?
I don't know. Um I don't know. There's just a bunch of shame, but like also this like it feels a legitimate like emotional need for me. And like I stopped doing drugs and stuff. So not that I did that many, but I did smoke some pot and like I just not been feeling it.
Well, I have this question of like, is it or is it not a legitimate emotional need? And probably the
Well, I
answer.
have a legitimate emotional need. Yeah, I don't think filling it with food is a good
Well,
solution.
my guess would be that sometimes it really is legitimate. Like sometimes you actually are hungry and you need to eat food, and other times
Yeah.
you're using it as a crutch, and maybe you can do without it. And it's
Yeah.
new, like working out which one's which.
Yeah. So like I usually know in the moment. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm like really hungry. Like I'm genuinely hungry, and then I eat and I feel good.
Yeah.
Like I feel like full and satisfied, and I'm like, I'm not hungry anymore. But sometimes I'm like, I'm not even hungry. Like now I want a snack. Like I have this urge to snack.
Right. We have been like triggering stuff about food for the last.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I got my tea going, so like that's helping.
Yeah.
Tea is just, it's the salad water, as they call it.
Salad.
The hot salad water.
Right. Okay. So if it's a legitimate emotional need.
Needing to eat isn't like needing to fill your emotions with food is not a legitimate need, but there is an underlying legitimate need that I am filling with food.
Oh, okay. So specifically, there's a negative emotional experience that you're feeling with food.
Yeah, like there's something emotionally going on.
Ah,
Because I feel it, because I feel it like the other day I was like, I don't know, it's like feeling good. And I'm like, okay, like I just don't need to eat today. Or like for most of the day.
well, so this is, I mean, it feels like we've jumped back a couple of steps to like new types of trigger awareness. Like we're back at trigger awareness. We're going like, oh, what are the feelings that make me want to eat? We're going for new internal process awareness.
Yeah, I don't know. Like as far as I could tell, it's like I've gotten to like there's stress involved, but there is this flip side of like sometimes sometimes like my stomach and chest line up. Like there's like the energies and stuff, like I feel things in my chest, feel things in my stomach, and like sometimes they just like line up nicely, and I'm just like, oh, like I am full and I didn't eat anything.
Yeah.
Like I'm obviously like not full on food. Like it's not a a physical thing. There's like a
Emotional, whatever.
yeah, psychological, something like that. I don't know. I don't know what it is exactly. It's like
so this is like, okay, we need to add now some mindfulness to this puzzle. We don't know. We've got as far as we can.
Yeah.
Now we need to return to that other method of like, let's add some mindfulness and see what happens. So over the next couple of days or whatever, it's going to be like, oh, what happens when I go to eat stuff? Oh, it was this emotion. It was that emotion. That one was legitimately hunger because I hadn't eaten anything today. This one was illegitimately like bottling up a feeling and covering it up with some food. Like this is mindfulness. We're going to have to.
Yeah, I actually, the truth is, I do have like other things to fill it with. Like I sometimes go for walks as well. Like that's one of the ways I deal with it. Where I'm like, oh, I need to eat something, but I'm like, I'm not actually hungry. I just need to like de-stress. And then the walk. Yeah, I did a walk today. It was pretty good. It was like cold outside and I didn't really bundle up. So I like feel that cold. It's a Canadian thing. Australians like
I get it. I think there's something I want to say here, which is like, slow down. Like I can see that there's this way in which you're excited to start solving the problem. You're like, oh, I'm starting to get mindful of like, oh, this feeling.
I'm jumping steps. I'm seeing that I'm jumping steps, but I don't see what the steps are that I'm jumping.
Right. I'm gonna like go for a walk instead of eating food. Right.
Yeah.
Like, and it's
no, because they're like what happens is I'm stressed and I'm trying to deal with the stress. And so my trigger is food, but then like as I'm contemplating the food, like there's enough time there in that reaction for me to go like, okay, what else can I do? And and like going for a walk is a thing I could do.
So that'll work a bit, and there will then be times when you're still triggered and still eat food, and those ones you're going to have the mindfulness, and you're going to have to find the root and work through it. But if going for a walk works, just do that. But there was my general hunch about this is that there will still be ones that like if you're like, I found the panacea, all it is was I had to go for more walks, right? There's ways in which that won't work.
It's not a panacea. Like I've been trying to do like multi-prong approach, like just whatever works.
But there's a way in which like the problem will remain the problem until you find the root. Like, some of them can be alleviated with walks, some of them can be alleviated with healthier food, some of them can be alleviated with variety of food. And then there's like something is still at the root of like, and in that sense, it's important to be patient, be kind, find the root, and then work with that, and then clear it entirely. But
I think it generally tends to be like social, because like the stomach stuff is very much related to social anxiety or whatever, social relationships.
There's definitely,
but that's like I haven't like figured out social dynamics yet. Like I'm pretty good at like psychology and like understanding like what's happening with people and like their experience. But like the social stuff is still so random to me.
Mm. Like there's a way in which food literally solves the problem of social. Like
Right.
I'm feeling bad, like my attention is hooked on a bad feeling about what's going on socially, and I eat something, then my attention shifts from that to my stomach because my stomach is digesting things.
Right.
Like I've literally interrupted my previous attention process with eating food. Like go to
Right. And,
save the day of not having to feel the thing that is bad by eating more food.
right. I think the other one is like evolutionarily or whatever. Like the social stuff is designed, like the social stuff is where you get your food from. And
Right.
so if you're like eating, like when you're eating, like you don't need the group as much. Like when you're full, you don't need the group as much.
Right. You just need to lie around and be full until you're hungry.
Well, because you bought yourself a bunch of time, right?
Right.
Right. Like because you can eat like what is it like? It's like a pound or half a pound a day, I think.
Stuff like
Of
that.
fat. So yeah, so like if you put on like 10 pounds, then you've got like 10 days or whatever to go find
Backup buffer. Like you can walk across the desert to the next camp because you have enough backup.
Yeah, yeah, like you gotta 2 weeks or whatever to sort yourself out.
Yes.
Um, yeah,
So that's interesting too.
yeah.
So there's some need to still find the root of the trauma. Whether like we're calling it trauma because it's like,
Well, I think this might be it. Like I think it's a lot of like the social stuff. Like I don't know, I don't understand group dynamics.
oh, okay. How does it feel? Where do you feel it?
It usually feels like it's like empty or like frustrated. Like I get frustrated, but like it's like the place where the group dynamics would be is like empty. You know what I mean?
Like the location in your body where you would store understanding of how groups work
Yeah.
doesn't contain that understanding, and it can instead contains constant bad feeling like, oh no, we don't know what's going on, and oh no, what if we can't keep track, and oh no, what if we miss?
It's this feeling that goes away if I eat.
Mm-hmm. What's the feeling?
Yeah. Or at least distracts me or something.
Sure. What's the feeling?
I'm feeling it now, actually. This is awkward and embarrassing.
Great.
Is it shame? Am I feeling shame?
Feels a little bit more complicated than that. There's something else going on.
Yeah. It feels like I'm feeling it right though. Like my stomach has relaxed and now it's just like this like diffuse cloud in front of me.
Cool. Good. It's a good shift.
Yeah.
Sometimes I also feel like there's a feeling like and like an atom, like let's just say it's like this big, it's an atom, and it's like somewhere in my stomach, and because I don't want to feel it, I just keep putting more food in on top of it, and then I keep getting fatter and fatter. And if I could just find the pearl and go, or the grain of sand in the pearl,
It's not like that. It's it's like my whole stomach is numb. It's like it kind of feels like numbness, I think.
Cool.
Or like a muscle. If you know when you like if you work out and then you don't work out for a while, like you get that muscle ache of like use me.
Cool.
But like I don't know how to contract or relax that muscle. Yeah.
One thing you can do is just feel it like this, and then you may work out how to contract and relax it.
Doesn't feel like it's in my body.
Okay, that's okay though. They're like experientially, our feelings can sometimes appear around us, or like
like the proprioception thing is weird, being weird now.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool. I mean, you don't need to do anything with it, right? We got the whole do nothing thing. Like, oh, it's like this now. Does it want to leave? Does it want to shut down? Does it want to make you eat food? Or is it just like, this is fine?
Well, like I'm purposefully relaxing and being with the tension.
Cool.
And so that's
I also think of that as an integration step. Like there's a tension, instead of having to fight it, I can just stay here with it. And that's me integrating and aligning with it. Like, okay, cool.
yeah. It's like not reacting to it, not reacting.
Getting more comfortable here on the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, like my stomach feels more relaxed now. But the tension's still there.
I feel like this is the new big thing for psychotechnologies. Psychotechnologies of weight loss. Spread it to the world.
You know what? I bet, like, not saying I could design that now, but I bet like the socials, like going through like doing the social thing properly. If I knew how to do that, like designing that, like I bet that would, because a lot of the times like that just like releases, like it can just release all that tension. And I think physically it's pretty much calories in, calories out, but that's not really the hard part of dieting. It's not like like it's not like, okay, like don't eat, like if eat less and exercise, if saying that worked, then there wouldn't be any problem. But
Right.
it's like all these other chemicals are going on. And like, yeah. I would go to that. I don't think I could run it, but I would go.
You would learn the lessons of the psychotechnologies of weight loss.
Yeah. Because it's not like, yeah, I'm feeling it. It's not mental. It does feel
Like emotional.
at least for me, like in this case, right? Like obviously the stuff is complex. But yeah, it's I don't know, emotional. I wish I had more words to describe my inner experiences.
Like somatic.
Yeah, it's somatic.
Okay, so somatic is a word I would use to describe sensations that are in the body that are like smaller than emotions, but still can be felt or can move around and can influence.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely somatic. But the location's not in my body. It's so weird. Do you ever get that? Like when you have like somatic feelings, but the location isn't
Right.
in the
I mean, I've
body.
worked with people who have the thing behind their shoulders that's like haunting them, and but
Yeah.
I tend to I'd say do a quick body scan, because you might just find that despite appearing, you described it as out front in space in front of you, you may like surprise it's actually over here in my body. But for some reason, there's like a wiring issue where we project it out to the world rather than like perceiving it inside. And like, so body scan, we're going to add this to the list of meditation techniques. Body scan, as in like place the attention roughly every 2 inches throughout the body and just like stay there for a moment and then move to the next place. Stay there for about a second. So it can take a while to do a body scan. And then even that, like a coarse grid over the body of like, where are we in the body or where are we working? And sometimes I'll be like, oh, I didn't realize, but it was in my hip or something like this. The psoas muscles run from the legs up through the hip to the spine. And there's a lot of like fear stuff about like fear and running away that is just there or something. And I've worked with people and then it's like, oh no, that's not outside. Like I'm scared of stuff. It's actually my psoas muscle. And I'm like, and it's like quite tight and it's like tense and it's being like, get ready to run, get ready to run. And then I felt where it was in the body and it was like, oh, okay. Then I can relax it. And I'm like, oh, that feels better. So sometimes they're in the body, but I didn't know to locate them in the body because it really felt like it was outside first. But in terms of meditative technique, the course body scan every 2 inches of the body is just kind of like,
yeah. So you like come up through. So like the way I do it is, I think there's a Vipassana method, but I don't do that one. It's I do the Western one. So you start at your toes, and you can move. The thing I like to do is every joint. Because you can if you don't have the somatic awareness to like pinpoint your body, which I think most people who haven't most people just don't, you can actually just move the joint and then you can feel it,
right?
And then so if you pick every single joint, and then for your like legs and stuff, like you can do like the bigger ones, you could do the stuff like flex the muscle, and then right. You can feel every part of you can move up and feel every part of your body.
Mm-hmm. It's just like a brief check-in, and like maybe one muscle somewhere is having a freak out and the rest are like, this is fine. And you're like, oh, that's the one, that's where the thing is. And that's there are lots of different body scan methods, and if you do a Vipassana, the 10-day silent sitting meditation, they eventually get you to go down to like millimeter by millimeter, like scan the body. And then also like they describe like a sweep, like imagine like a lightsaber passing through the body and like scanning the whole line at once. It's just different ways to sort of starting.
I've heard these things. This is one of the paths to enlightenment. So you do the body, and then when you have full body awareness, like when the body realizes itself, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Right. So this is again another meditative technique working with trauma. And so there's this saying, the body keeps the score, or the trauma is stored in the body.
The book, yeah.
Right. There's a book by brain lost it. Bessel van der Kolk.
I didn't finish it.
It was a long book, and it had some good things at the end. If you skip some and go to the end, but
I hate it. Well, our authors put the good things at the end. Put it at the beginning. Like, stop wasting my time. Books should go downhill, not uphill.
Should they?
You know what I mean?
They should go, well,
that way you could just stop reading when you had enough.
The whole way. Anyway, there should be an enjoyable journey the whole way. The body keeps the score. Literally, like finding them in the body is often very powerful, because like, the car accident example, the injury is possibly physically located in the body, but the like emotional drama, I'll tell you what, I had one once, and this was about a year or two ago, sort of well into my meditative and experiential discovery journey, and I like backed into something and I scratched my back, like a big like scratch, like I backed into a brick wall and there was a scrape, and I went, that's weird, whatever, I did it, like, oh well, silly me. And then a couple of weeks later I was meditating and I could feel it. It came up very vivid, this like sensation, and then the memory popped back in, and it was this thing was healing, it re-triggered the memory. And this was like, it was not very traumatic, right? It was like a minor physical trauma because I scratched myself, but like lowercase t trauma. But it was, as I went to feel the thing in the body, it triggered the memory to come back up and remind me of like, where did this scratch come? Where did this sensation come from? Came from the scratch. The scratch came from the memory of the experience of the injury. That's kind of like, as we do body scans, we can dig up our emotional traumas as well, and then we can process them and heal them physically and heal them emotionally in the body. And then next time I go for the walk, and instead of triggering the memory of tripping over and scraping my knee and having my siblings laugh at me, I just don't trigger it, because I processed it. Like I've processed the sensations in the body, and I've come to a peaceful relationship with them. And so they don't trigger the haunting memory anymore. Like we've reprocessed, we've gone from unaware to aware to symptom aware to trigger aware to internal process aware to conscious concept. And we've gone for that memory, and we've gone, oh yeah, that happened, that's okay. And now I've let it go entirely, and I walk without triggering that haunting memory. With all of these different types of meditation to help us along the way, including body scans. And also, this is why Vipassana sometimes triggers crazy stuff in people, because they're unprepared and then they like open up the entire wound of somatic trauma at once.
Yeah.
How are you feeling?
It's deep stuff. I think I did yeah, I think I went too deep. This
Yeah.
happens to me sometimes. This happens to me also with what's his name, with Cavett Magistrate.
Ah,
Cavett
you
Magistrate.
like
Where,
found
like,
the
I
thing,
did,
you were like, oh, dang.
yeah. I bet there's something here. I bet like this is
Found something,
like
you
this,
found a wound?
what?
You found a wound?
I don't know, wound, but like I think the way I'm operating is like I'm not operating from this deep state. And because like I know now, like it's like I have to concentrate to not slur my words, and
Do you need to do more do nothing?
I'm slow. Do I need to do more nothing? Always. But specifically, I don't I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, there's like this body, like this like full body place that I'm in right now.
Mm-hmm. And is it heavy or?
Yeah. It's heavy and like it's effortful to talk. Like at the beginning of the episode, right? Like I came in, I'm like, boom, boom, you know, like I was doing that because I wanted to do that. It was fun.
Mm-hmm.
And like for me, if I was like, I have to like do the intro now, it would be painful. But I had so much fun doing it before.
Right. So okay, let's play down this little track of heaviness, right? So we're not going to fight it. We're going to let it be, because fighting it doesn't work anyway. And one of the interesting things I find, like I can feel the heaviness too, right? I named it before you did because I can feel it. I have the like relational sensing thing.
Mm-hmm.
So one cool thing about heaviness is it kind of wants to sink. So you can just kind of let it sink through you. Like,
I don't find the heavy. I sink into the heaviness.
okay. I mean, that's okay.
I guess that's the same, just different perspective.
I'm describing something slightly different. Sometimes there's like a heavy sensation up here and it keeps being heavy and I can just let it fall downwards.
Oh no, yeah. No, that I like. That feels like I'm digesting stuff.
Right. That's why I was putting you.
But no, this is like I'm in a trance. Like I have this like I'm a little face inside of this like big stomach. And I'm like like I'm like sinking into it, and then now you're gonna get this body. And so like I'm gonna be physically here, but
not so mentally here.
Yeah. Like if you ask me some hard questions now, I don't know if I'd be able to answer them.
That's right. Make Daniel do some math.
No, I'm not doing that. I'm going to set up a boundary with you within our social dynamic, and I'm going to say no to math right now.
No math.
Yeah, some people don't even do math in public. You know that? I watch this podcast. They don't, My First Million, they won't do math in pub online, like in the podcast. They do the math before, and if they didn't do it, then they just don't do it online. They won't make any calculations.
I mean, I remember making like a bajillion arithmetic mistakes, like, yeah, all the time. Not even afraid of it. I did it so many times.
I would be insulted. I would feel ashamed if I wasn't able to do back of the envelope calculations in real time.
I mean, I would also feel stupid every time I got a thing wrong, and that's okay too. Like doing it, getting the
Well, don't get it wrong. Well, you can't like Fermi estimate just off the cuff, like.
That I can, but if I'm like adding numbers, like add 50 and 72, like blah 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 numbers.
Oh, I just estimate.
Yeah,
I don't do exact stuff. I rarely calculate exact numbers. I'm always just estimating.
Right.
Because most of the time you just need the answer to be within an order of magnitude. This is distracting us from what we're talking about. Although
Yep.
it's fun to talk about.
Yes, it is distracting, and I'm like curious where this distraction was going anyway, and also what we're running from because there's just a bunch of heaviness, right?
Shame. Yes. No, that's what we're talking about. Oh,
Well,
okay. Yeah, because this is like social stuff, and then we switched into talk about social things. And so I'm sharing stuff. I never shared that before.
yeah. So there's a way in which feelings, like we had the heavy feeling, and then it was looking for an outlet. So it called up a memory that was similar that we could talk about, like math stuff,
I
shame.
don't know. I a
Outlet.
different interpretation.
Yeah.
I'm in this state like it's like a social thing going on.
Right.
And so like talking about social standards. Because we never talk about social standards. Like, I don't mean you and I mean like
Yeah.
people in general. Like I go into groups, I want to know like what are the social standards? And like that's like the first thing I do is just like figure out like what are the group dynamics? Like what are the rules? Like how does this work?
Mm.
And like most groups, you can't really just go meta and be like, okay, like guys, I
Who's
go
in
to
charge?
groups all the
How does it
time, and
work?
like you have all these rules that if you people don't follow them, then they're bad people. But like every group has different rules, so like I need to like what are your specific idiosyncrasies? Like I just want to ask that, but
Mm.
it's too
It's also people might not know.
yeah,
Might know we punish people for talking out of turn, but they don't might not know that that's the rule.
right,
And they may
right.
be
Because
doing
it's
it more
obvious to
like
them.
conscious.
Yeah, that's like a big problem with the culture war as well. It's like I think the culture war is kind of a lot of it is like what are the standards
Right.
for group dynamics?
Who's allowed to have bad epistemics? Which side? My
Oh
side
my
or your side?
god. Dude, bad epistemics is the worst. Epistemic hygiene is so important. And I know the rationalists like go a bit
Oh, no, I've
overboard with
triggered
it,
him. I've
but
triggered him.
what?
I've triggered him. We're in it.
No, you know what? We're in it, but uh it feels good. It feels good. Like these are like my social anxieties, and like
Mhm.
they're like coming out, and like we're able to and that's the thing is like most places I can't say that. I'm like I can't be like I'm triggered by bad epistemics. Right? Like who the fuck is gonna sorry, who's gonna like people are gonna think I'm nuts.
Well,
But I legitimately am triggered by bad epistemics
I also think there's an interesting place in the
or
conversation.
high confident low epistemics.
What do you
I
mean?
don't mind like
Right.
yeah.
Okay. So if someone says a statement that is sounds highly confident, but they actually have low certainty for it, that bothers you?
Well, so there's like a bunch of things. So there's like let's say you're doing improv or whatever, like I don't need you to actually be accurate.
There's a special container there for like,
Right. Like the thing is that we're all lying. Like, okay, I got that. And then there's like then there's also like you get like brainstorming sessions, let's say, or creative spaces. And there you also want like low standards for epistemics because
because we want to promote any
you're
idea.
generating creativity, not truth. And that's fine. But yeah, like I don't know, sometimes I go to parties and people just say things like really confidently. And like it makes me doubt myself.
Mm.
And then they won't like, and then I'm like I'll do some inquiries, and then either they get like offended and like, try to like cover up and like use that social stuff to cover it up, or they're just like whatever, like, and then they just move on. Like they don't acknowledge like, oh yes, I made a mistake. Like, oh yes, I was wrong, and now I'm going to update. And like that's what I want for my social groups.
Mm.
I want like updating to happen. Then I feel safe because I'm like, okay, like whatever happens, at least I just have to be truth, and like I'll be fine.
So we're
Like,
talking about
protective
the
of
root of
me.
social safety for Daniel.
Yeah.
Mm.
I don't know if this is like a healthy way of doing it.
More like,
This is the way
this
I
is
feel.
for your trauma, right? Your childhood trauma stuff. Your
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to go there online. But yeah.
fair enough. This contains.
There
Like,
is an over reliance
is
on
it
me.
possible to go there, but at a distance? Like, okay, we're seeing the social. dynamics and the
Yeah, we can acknowledge that this is what's happening without going detailed.
Well, there's a really important concept here that I think I want to spread in the therapy world, which is that like certain phenomena are better approached from a distance.
Mm. Like an optimal grip or optimal distance, I guess.
Right. So especially for the certain phenomena that like disappear if you get too close. And so like there's a way in which like even talking about earlier, we were talking about the anticipation pain, but when I get there, it's kind of all right. And so if I want to learn about anticipation pain, I need to not go straight to the memory. I need to like stay back and like learn the skills of the anticipation pain and learn how to be with the anticipation pain, different to like slam into the memory, like bash my head against it. This sucks. I hate therapy, you know, like that's not a pro-social healthy way to go about it.
Right.
So there's a lot of ways in which like, here's your childhood stuff. Don't tell me, but like, we're going to see it from a distance. Struggle socially. Okay. Like get a couple of keyword headlines, but we don't have to slam into it. Like it's tender, it's painful. It's stuff that sucks. Like I'm an adult as well. I've done a bunch of personal work. I know where a bunch of my pain points are. I don't need to like slam my head against them. I need to like deliberately navigate around them because they're tender. Like, duh.
Yeah.
Like as a smart human, I'm going to obviously navigate around my pain.
As a compassionate human for yourself, right? Like not to cause yourself unnecessary suffering.
That's right.
Yeah.
Particularly, and then knowing that I need to maybe still address it when I'm ready or find the right containers to address it. There's a skill here of navigating those things. Like, okay, this is the idea I want to spread, but like things can be approached from a distance. And like talking with someone at the moment who is sort of gets detached or like depersonalized or disembodied, like they float away and they're like, why am I floating away? I'm losing touch with reality. I'm like, it's a safety thing. You have to get distance. Like, remember earlier we were talking about, we're going to go away to the nice place. We're going to do nothing. We're going to like breathe a bit. And then we're going to come back to look at it. That's a going away so that we can get appropriate distance.
Yeah.
Like the heaviness, like that's okay. You're going to a place to do a thing.
Yeah. Like I feel like I'm gonna get yelled at.
If you go to a place and feel heavy.
Like I'm in this place and it's like it's heavy and it's slow. And so I'm like not responding. I guess like the word that comes to mind is normally. I'm not endorsing this story. I'm just sharing
right.
the story that's happening. Yeah, there's like I'm gonna get yelled at for like not being normal. And also like I feel like a stoner. I feel kind of like stoned, like I smoked too much weed and now I'm on this podcast and I got too high and like, but like it was not weed, it's like a meditation. Like I did too much of this meditation and now
right.
Now I'm not having that like high energy that our viewers are going to come to expect.
I feel like a lot of my work in the world is going to wherever people are, even if it's not the not high energy one. I mean, like, oh, it's fine to stay here.
It is fine to stay here. I appreciate that.
Like, it's fine to stay in a high energy.
I like having company here.
From a traumatic experience, it's just fine to stay here. And then, as it becomes more experientially fine to stay, as I like practice staying here, and it becomes fine to stay here, then it doesn't even bother me anymore. And then I can get on with my life and leave easily.
Yeah. Like you get used to it and then it just becomes a different normal.
One example of intrusive thoughts, there was a great podcast I listened to years ago, and it talked about a guy who was like, his intrusive thoughts are like, what if I stab the person I'm with? Like, what if I stab them? Right. And that's pretty like uncomfortable. Right? That's like OCD level intrusive thoughts.
Yeah.
And the way to work through that is to like gently, tenderly from a distance, be like get to know it a bit better. Like by the time the person gets to therapy, it's like a year or several years into this, like these intrusive thoughts that they've been fighting constantly, right? And at the other side of therapy, it's like this intrusive thought of like, what if I stab them? Who cares? Right? Like
Yeah.
I'm not going to stab someone, and yet I need to go from this like haunting, like what if I stab them, to like, letting that heavy emotion sitting on that statement like soften, get used to it, like till eventually I can have the knife on the table in front of me and a person nearby have the thought like, what if I stab them, and go like, this is fine. Like it's just a knife. Like I never plan to stab anyone anyway, right? And then like I can pick up the knife and not stab them. I can stab them and not stab. Wait a second. Right, but I can get closer to the phenomena without being afraid of it. There's a lot of extra pain around the phenomena when if I just had the thought, what if I stabbed them, and went, okay, like that's weird, or like, I don't want to stab them, and then let it go gently, as opposed to like squash, suppress, hide, like we do with many of our traumas. Try and hide them.
Yeah. This does feel better. I do feel less tense. I'll be honest, I wasn't really able to follow that. There's something about stabbing people. I was like trying to relate, and then I kind of drifted because I don't know, I didn't really have a lot to relate to that.
Yep. Well, it's like, what is intrusive thought?
I get like intrusive thoughts sometimes, but like they don't really bother me that much.
Good, great. You're in a healthy.
Sometimes, you know what? Like sometimes I just calculate it out. I'm like, okay, like what would happen?
What if sitting in the ball, suddenly everyone was a ninja and I had to fight them all? And like,
dude, yeah. Like I live that life sometimes where I'm just like, okay, I'm a ninja. Like, I mean, it happened like pretty hard after I finished Naruto. Where I'm like, okay, I'm a ninja and nobody knows. Like, and I'm like calculating out, I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna get caught. I'm like, nobody knows, right? Like it's just a mind shift that happens. And like, I know you're the only guy that notices mind shifts, so my life. So there's no one else. And like, I don't think you care. So.
No, I think it's funny. Like I like want to enjoy those. My job here is to enjoy every state that I encounter in people. Like if you're doing the what if I'm a ninja thing, I'm like, great. Like I want to just enjoy that with you, and then we'll
I lived as a spy for a bit. I was like, I don't know, it was like a year where I'm like, okay, I'm a spy for a secret organ for like this, and I'm like, okay, who am I working for? I'm like, well, not governments, they suck.
Some super secret organization or something.
Yeah, I just pretended I was working for this organization that I've never met.
Nice. I mean, look, I played Ingress for like Ingress is a capture the flag augmented reality game, so you have to like walk around the world, visit like monuments, and then like fight them in the digital world thing,
right?
Like Pokemon Go, but it was the one before Pokemon Go. It was the same company. Anyway, but the theme was like, we're secret agents, and so the phone app, like Pokemon's very bright and colorful, but the one for Ingress was like dark. And like it was like the Google Maps, but in black with like thin lines everywhere for like all the streets. And you have to walk over there to that thing and then attack it and then like walk away.
Yeah.
And then you have this experience where sometimes you run into other people playing Ingress too.
Can you like, if you find them out, like, can you like digitally assassinate them or something? Or
no, they don't appear on your map, right? But their actions in the world appear on your map.
Right.
So you can
see someone. You see the action happening, and you see someone in real life doing something,
right? And you can like walk by 5 minutes later and recapture the thing that they captured, stuff like that.
No, but you can't like go over. You can't like take your phone out and like shoot them, or because like that would add this like other dimension of like real life people.
You can't shoot the other person, but you can interact with their actions on the map.
Right. Okay.
Because they're a real person in real life. Like
you don't want to actually
like, anyway
hurt a random person. But I mean, like,
but you can like re-interact with the map against them sometimes.
Okay.
There was two teams in Ingress. There was two teams. There was the blue one and the green one. and you could like interact with them, the other team, and like change, like recapture the flag for your team.
Okay, so like you see them, and then as soon as you see them like put their phone away, then you like jump to the spot and like
Or like
recapture.
maybe they're walking down the street, and you see them walk down the street, so you see all the points that they capture along the way.
And then you just follow them and recapture points.
Right. Well, I mean, part of the time I was at university, so we would do that. We would gather a team of us and wander around and capture things. And yeah, fun times.
It's so interesting.
Life was just funny because also I'd look at people looking at their phone, and I'd be like, "Is that one of us? Is that one of the players, or is it just some random person looking at their phone?"
Yeah, dude, I do that. I do this all the time, where because like I'm part of like so many different like movements or groups that like every time I meet someone, I'm like, okay, like what do we have in common of these things, right? Like, is this person Jewish? Are they rationalist? Are they meditator? You know, effective altruism, whatever. Like all these groups. And so like it does often feel like I'm like a spy, and I'm like kind of like there's a bunch of like secret organizations in the world where they're not secret, like they're in public, but people often don't, like, people are affiliated with them, but they don't tell everyone. They don't make it public.
Right.
Because like it's weird. It's not socially normal.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about like I think, I'm not sure, but I think I transitioned from what you're describing of like belonging to many groups to like some level of universality of people are people.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, when did I do that, or how did I do that, or what was the like?
Interesting.
We're no longer like isms, like we're not libertarian isms, or like the vegans. It's no longer like a group identity, and it's a like much larger, like I'm one of humanity rather than I'm one of the vegans.
Yeah. Do you still have like the subgroups? Like,
yeah.
I legitimately feel like there's like I feel like there's a legitimate culture war going on, or at least like subterfuge, and like there is always this thing, like when you first meet people, where they're like the politics stuff, especially.
Do you belong to the like I saw a joke come around recently,
which side of this are you on?
Two communists meet, and then the first ones are like, to the second one, are you a Marxist or a Leninist? And then he's like, I'm a Marxist. And then he goes like, are you an anarchist or this one? And then he says this one. And then he gets to like the fourth one, and the guy says, I'm the other one. And he goes, I hate you.
Yeah, I heard that one with the Christians. Like, you follow Jesus. Oh yeah, me too. Like, we're both Protestant. Like, oh, you're part of this. Oh, you're on the north side, I'm on the south side. Like,
no, bad. Don't do that. Yeah. So I still see the groups, but it doesn't feel like what do I feel? I feel like there's some universality to the way that I desire to belong to groups. And so I see the way that other people desire to belong to groups. So even if I'm not part of that group, I can like connect with and understand the personal subjective desire to belong to a group. And that's the way that I can connect to the other person desiring a group.
Interesting.
Through the
so you're like, so you can connect with anyone who's in a group, because you're connecting to them as a person who wants to be part of a group.
Right. Or even like if someone's a bit of a loner, like self-admitted loner, I'm like, oh yeah, I also don't feel like I belong to many of the groups that I like. I know what it's like to feel like I'm alone. Like I can connect to you in that same universality of being alone.
Sorry. Yeah, that's like it's like a in-group hack.
Yes. Yeah. It's definitely a like so some things that got confusing, or maybe I'm not complete with, is the like maybe age. Like, how can I feel like I belong equally to someone my age, someone who's a teenager, someone who's a 5-year-old, and someone who's a 70-year-old? Like, there's some quality of like, I do feel like
you're getting pretty good at that.
Right. I do feel like there's a humanity to all of them. And I'm just also like a little bit uncertain when kids get really young. Like, I want to treat them like mature adults, and then also
Mm-mm.
box them in, and then also give them the freedom, and then also guide them in the ways that they don't yet understand.
There's a trick. So,
I'm learning that like subtle balance. Like with older people, I think I can like, yep, you know certain stuff and not other stuff, and like that's fine. But with kids, it's like I want to be more gentle.
there's a trick to young kids.
Yeah.
I think it's like what is like under the age of 5. You relate to them. You're like, what if I was 3 feet tall and on psychedelics all the time?
Right. And then there's
That's like you're 90% there. like
like little kids don't understand the world because they're so little, they have no experience, right?
like they're just on like they're on acid or shrooms all the time. Like that's just what they're just like their brain chemistry is that way. And so if you just pretend you're 3 feet tall and like on drugs, like that like nails it. Like you've got it. And then you just need to learn the culture
of the other person.
Well, little kids have their own culture. This is like crazy. But because like they're all doing the same thing, like they're like the same age group is doing the same thing at the same time, right? So like at 1 or like 3 weeks before you're 1, like that's walking culture. So
Right.
they're all learning to walk then. So they have these like things that happen in their lives that are so all encompassing. Like this is the thing, like this is like the main thing that's going on, right? It's like if you just got married, like that's the thing that's on your mind. If you just had a kid, that's the thing that's on your mind. If you're just learning to walk, that's the thing that's on your mind.
And it feels like all my friends are getting married right now. So like it's some universality.
Yeah. And so all his friends are learning to walk right now. Or, I mean, like, he doesn't really have him, but like whatever. But now he's like learning to talk. And they have like the peekaboo, and like they have these like things that are just like it's like a natural culture for humans. Just like the way we develop. Like the peekaboo thing is like huge.
Maybe it's like the ground. Like I'm an adult of 30 or whatever, 31, but it's like I stood on the ground of where that kid is right now once upon a time. Like it's got a universality to me because I also stood on similar peekaboo ground at one point.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's I think the trick for this for the kids is like people try to like think about it, right? They're like, oh, what is this person into? And they try to like intellectualize it.
Right.
Like just don't do that. You know what I mean? Like because like they don't, if the second you start intellectualizing, they don't have that ability. Like they don't have developed frontal lobes. Right. Like my kid is
simple desires, simple wants, simple enjoyment.
Yeah, like they don't talk really even until like he does words, but he doesn't do like semantic sentences. And so there's you can't string thoughts together. If you can't think, you can't speak, you can't think like in this way.
Right.
So you do the vibes, and the vibes are you're like on drugs and 3 feet tall. And then you just like do that nonsense and they love it. And you could just like relate and have so much fun.
Yep.
I'll let you know when it becomes a kid and a teenager, and see if we got some hacks there.
Yes.